Hello and welcome everybody, I'm OneProperVarian and today we will jump into Dev Diary number 153 for CK3. This one is all about Byzantine flavor, and this one is a really interesting Dev Diary for me in particular because it actually does something that I have never liked, but in this case I am almost in love with it. In the past, when they introduced tours and tournaments, we also saw diarchies, so regencies, and I always found them clunky. I wasn't too sure about whether I really enjoyed them. But what they have done here for Co-Empress, and you're going to see this as we walk through this, is just tremendous, at least in my opinion. And this also actually stretches out to feudal governorship, so you know what, I'm quite happy with what they've done here. I don't really want to keep you too long, because this is yet again an incredibly long Dev Diary, so let's just jump in. Let's start by talking about flagship for administrative government. Byzantium has been our main point of inspiration. We outlined this in the two previous Dev Diaries on admin, but I wanted to discuss this in a bit more detail. Essentially, all the content that we have made for administrative government has been designed with an eye towards Byzantium as the model. This doesn't mean that this content can't appear if playing as a different admin realm, far from it. What it does mean is that all the content that you encounter while playing as Byzantium should feel tailored and appropriate to the context. There's an alternative text for other admin realms, however, so fret not, we have siloed all the content to a single empire. Playing admin should generally feel different and exciting, but playing as Byzantium should feel special. I like this. This is the best thing that you can do if you don't have a universal government system. If it is almost entirely based on the Byzantines, then, well, what you can do is sit down and at least try to adjust it so that it can also be applicable if, let's say, the Franks or maybe the Abbasids and so on are treated as administrative government, or, well, whatever kind of realm that you build and then later on adapt government in that playthrough. This is good news because it means that this regional mechanic, and yes, I'm going to call it that, obviously you can apply it to other areas as well, but fundamentally, everything here is inspired about Byzantium, or is about Byzantium. Even this regional mechanic can be used elsewhere and not feel entirely empty. Big step. Now let's talk about the improved cultural traditions. They've revamped Greek cultural traditions and added special integrations with admin government and the other unique aspects of the DLC. In the descriptions below, you will undoubtedly find references to features and concepts that we haven't yet discussed, but we will be discussing it later or in a future Dev Diary. So, what do we have right here? We got palace politics first of all. This is amazing illustrations right here. I love Imperial Tagmata and I love palace politics, and well, these also. The art in this DLC, I would argue, is just absolutely incredible. We are really getting some good stuff. Now let's take a look at this. Can recruit Varangian guards as men-at-arms when holding the Byzantine Empire title and the Varangian Guard has been founded. We're going to see that in a bit. Can appoint the Akolothos, probably not how it's pronounced, court position when holding the Byzantine Empire title, and the Varangian Guard has been founded. Reduced bodyguard aptitude, we're going to see both of these explained later. Rulers can blind prisoners, rulers can castrate prisoners. The eunuch and beardless eunuch traits grant additional skills, aptitude, and influence. Really interesting here. Can appoint the chief eunuch court position, can use the castrate kin interaction. The ambitious trait is more common, physically disfigured, and infertile claimants cannot press their claims against rulers in this culture. Improves the withdraw from view countermeasure. Loyal, deceitful, ambitious, arbitrary, and paranoid characters gain more influence, and then these right here gain less influence. And then last but not least, this is a huge cultural tradition, as you can see. All Greek characters, personal scheme phase length, 10 days faster per scheme phase. The same is true for political scheme phases right here. Honestly, this is really big because it does really mean, and they're going into this lightly here, it does really mean that at the end of the day, you as a Greek have a boatload of unique characteristics. So far, when it comes to previous iterations of this, so for example Iran, but also everything going on in Iberia, they normally never went this low or this deep, I mean. By that I mean is that when they did cultural traditions, they did good stuff, most of the time anyway, but it was never nearly this impactful. This is just insane. This is just palace politics. This is a single cultural tradition. Honestly, very promising. And then over here we have Roman ceremonies. And then on there we have cultivated sophistication. We're going to see some more traditions later, don't worry about it too much. Gain a decision to hold a triumph. We'll learn more about that in a bit. Then you can hold chariot races. That is also explained further down the line. Children born to a ruler holding the Byzantine Empire may gain the Born in the Purple trait. I wonder what this is based on. Could this be one of those things where if you were to pick up Roman ceremonies, this also later on expands to any empire that you might have found? Honestly, this seems like a very specific type of cultural tradition, but I would actually like it if we could say, okay, we are Roman heirs, but in Francia, and if you pick up this cultural tradition, it focuses on the Francian Empire, so that one in particular, rather than the Byzantine Empire itself. I believe this is pronounced Duumvirate, right? Let's just say it is. Administrative emperors may enter into Duumvirates, voluntarily sharing power with another character for powerful bonuses. You're gonna see this, there is way more meat on this than in any other type of regency that we have seen, any type that can really happen. This is super cool. We're gonna see that in a second. It's awesome. Seriously, I actually love this, I think. Administrative emperors may appoint one of their children as nominal co-empress, entering into a nominal duumvirate until the child comes of age. And then vassals of this culture are much more likely to join claimant factions against the whole of the Byzantine Empire if they are not the preferred heir. Big fan. These cultural traditions, and these were just two of them, we're going to see, and this is just basically us walking through everything that we've just read here, but we're going to see more later down the line, and these cultural traditions are massive. They are huge. Normally, dynasty legacies and cultural traditions are huge hit or miss for me, because very often they will sit down and say, well, here are some modifiers, here's some random stuff. These cultural traditions fundamentally really encapsulate and support everything going on in administrative government. I think you can see here that I have my fundamental issues with these gameplay systems that I have very much verbalized in previous videos, but when it comes to this particular implementation, I think they're actually doing a lot of things right. This sounds like fun. I mean, just look at all the things that you will be able to do if you are Greek. Look at all the things that you will have access to. You will be interested in sharing the imperial culture. It will be good for you if the Byzantine Empire comes knocking to just be a vassal. And maybe you don't want to stay Frankish, so maybe you don't want to stay all the way over there if you are a vassal of the Byzantine Empire as a distant culture. Maybe you simply want to have a hybrid culture. Maybe you want to just turn Greek. You want to just turn yourself into the new type of thing that really takes control of your region. That is something that does not exist. The rules that you can play with here are not something that you normally concern yourself with if you are a feudal ruler. You can see that different from feudal realms where it will be very normal to be a minority vassal, here you have so many incentives to either become closer to them or to become their culture, which is a characteristic of empires, especially of, you know, bureaucratic empires like they were here in this particular instance. Huge fan. Political schemes are a new category of schemes that we have added as a central aspect to the administrative government experience. I will go into more detail about this, but suffice it to say that you can play in Byzantium without engaging with these new schemes. We talked about this here. This is absolutely massive, that this is fun. I'm not entirely sure whether it will be. It is very ambitious. We've talked about it in the past. You leave a lot of the established gameplay loop behind, but you can clearly tell that they have put a lot of work into this. Listen, I am hoping, I am praying, I want this to be fun. I love CK3, so let's hope that they nail it, but this right here is the crux of the issue without a doubt. Since you don't really do any, just taking over all that much land as you do, no inheritance is really going on there, that doesn't really play a role. Since you're not doing that, this right here has to be fun. And I'm already kind of skeptical, we're going to see it further down the line as well. But hey, let's cross our fingers, let's hope that it's going to happen. And of course, your chief eunuch will be a major player. We've added a new trait called Beardless Eunuch to differentiate characters castrated as children from characters who were castrated as adults. Does this sound grim? I mean, most certainly. Welcome to, the past. Just look at the background here. I love the art. I love this outfit. This right here is Nikephoros the Young. I wonder whether he is an actual historical character. He might be, right? He is a beardless eunuch. Gets additional stats, -4 prowess. He gets influence. And see, here I'm not so sure. If he gets influence, do I benefit from this? Because, okay, so he gets influence, but me as the emperor, I'm his employer, right? Does this, maybe how much influence he generates is like relevant for the court eunuch position? We're gonna see. I am honestly not too sure right now, but either way, you can see right here, we can put people on the path at a very young age. Eunuch, silent as the moon's passage, he moves through the marble halls, a keeper of secrets in a land where words are currency. In the shadow of emperors, he whispers, shaping the fate of the empire with nothing but the softest murmur. Provides scheme potential, requires intrigue and learning, benefits from traits like deceitful and patient, and suffers from traits like compassionate and honest. We got a real Varus vibe going on here. As you can see, these characters also affect influence. They're generally disliked by other vassals in the realm because they make for excellent scheme agents in political schemes. So I maybe would assume, I'm not too sure here, but I might assume that if you generate a lot of influence, even if you're not using that influence in that scheme, you are just good and better at that scheme. That would be an interesting element if these scheme agents don't just rely on, martial or whatever primary stat combination you have, but rather also influence generation. Interesting. Roman ceremonies contains a slew of new features of Byzantium, including access to the Hold the Triumph decision, the chariot race activity, and so on, like we talked about it. Let's move on to these two traditions right here. Imperial Tagmata can recruit Cataphractoi, Acritai, Ballistrae, and Skotutoi. My apologies to all Greeks out there, I am so sorry. Frontier administration governorships may borrow the title men-at-arms of non-frontier neighbors. Look at how cool that is. We need to see that in action. The entire military system, with how it works here, with how we are in a position where effectively it differs so massively, since it's all elite armies. I talked about it in a previous dev diary, of course. We need to see that in action. But I am really eager to see the difference between me picking up a governorship in a frontier area, where I am then able to borrow those men-at-arms that come from non-frontier neighbors, compared to how it plays if I am in the heart of the empire. I hope, this is my optimal case scenario, right? All of my theoretical issues aside, I hope that the gameplay experience here is that as I play a singular life, even if I never turn emperor, I will have an amazing time hopping between governorates. If I want to be at war, I pick up a frontier area. If I want to build up, if I just want to get some expertise, I am in the center, right? That kind of stuff. Maybe at some point I become the co-emperor with no ambition to actually ever become the sole emperor, meaning I can just go on, and you're gonna see this, use the powerful CB that you can get as a co-emperor and really throw my weight around in the name of the emperor, and rather in the name of the empire actually, rather than just doing nothing because I can't amass titles. This right here already goes into this direction, right? This specialty of just the frontier administration makes it so that it will be different to play there compared to playing in the center. I really hope that it plays out exactly like that, because even if it isn't everything that I hoped for, it would be fun. I've said it in the past, right? And this is the last time I appeal there to the previous videos, but I've said in the past, even if I dislike the very concept, the idea of a system, I think it can still be fun. And this right here most certainly goes into that direction. Then we have cultivated sophistication. Let's take a look at that. The convert to culture, a local culture decision causes stress gain and is avoided by rulers. Makes sense, right? We are spreading the imperial culture. This is not the same as saying, okay, well, you swear allegiance to me, my dear Britain friends, you can do whatever you want, you're self-governed. This is me coming in and saying, if you're not me, then you are not actually justified in ruling this region, in ruling this empire. That is, of course, the major element there. They also talked about it, that the religion and such, if you have a different religion, then you are very, very negatively rated when it comes to, electoral stuff. This here makes perfect sense. Other cultural rulers are more likely to hybridize with this culture. Oh, I love this so much. I cannot wait to form the Roman Empire. God, this is a first for me. I did all the achievements in CK2, and I did the Roman Empire run where you need to restore the borders, and it's so tedious, it's so annoying. I hated that, but right here, I'm like, I cannot wait to conquer, let's say, Germany, and then the Germans either convert to my culture or create their own hybridized cultures because they say, I want to become a firm part of the empire. That is really where all things come together here. Constructing or upgrading estate buildings provides plus 20 development growth to the estate's county. Interesting. That is, oh my god. What if can I exploit this? Don't tell Zeely, okay? But can I go, I build something, I remove it, I build something, I remove it, I build something, I remove it. Can I do that and upgrade my development growth like crazy in that area? That's an interesting thought. Administrative noble family house heads may use the adopt house member interaction. I love it. It gives you influence, it gives you diplomatic range. Absolutely nothing wrong with this. Let's move on to the new men-at-arms types. The Varangian Guard is one of them, and we can even see the decision right here. Let's examine that a bit closer. Of course, they have good stats. They are, of course, not Greek. They are Norse. For years, warriors from the remotest lands in the north have collected in Constantinople, attracted by our riches. They offer their service as mercenaries, an art at which they excel and have no loyalties except those to coin and their own pride. If we could organize their presence around the emperor, we would get an invincible military force at our personal service. Unlocks the court position Akoluthus and the Varangian guardsmen at arms for the Byzantine Empire. What do we need for this? We need level of fame 3. That is very easy. At least one of these in the realm is Norse, or 5 of my courtiers are Norse, and then whatever this is down there. Maybe like a spouse's Norse or something? Maybe. Whatever it is, this is the decision that lets you found the Varangian Guard, and once it stands, it of course stands. I would really like it, and I know that this obviously isn't going to be the case, because if you look at this right here, this is directly tied. Then again, you know what I'm thinking now? You think I can adopt palace politics? Because that would imply, if I'm German and I adapt palace politics I adopted, I mean, I could then create the Varangian Guard for myself, right? Ooh. I want to see what the requirements are there. Maybe you have to be bureaucratic, but that is completely fine if you then can actually adopt it. Interesting thought. Anyway, you can found them, you can get them, and then they will of course be around. The Varangian Guards Men-at-Arms type is now available to the Emperor of Byzantium as title Men-at-Arms. This means they can only be recruited for the Byzantine Empire title. Furthermore, you can't recruit them right off the bat if you start in 867. You must take the Found the Varangian Guard decision first. Next is the Akoluthus court position. To head up these new Men-at-Arms is a brand new court position, the Akoluthus. Historically, this was an office in the Imperial Palace tasked with overseeing the Varangians. If we take a look at it right here, we can see Galam, good old Galam. He has opinion bonus +5, has good aptitude. Heavy infantry toughness goes up, increases Varangian bodyguard aptitude, so that is actually pretty good. Means that the Varangian bodyguard will be better at protecting you, and I think we saw earlier that bodyguards actually are worse if you're a Greek. In general, yeah, look at that. Greek characters have a reduced bodyguard aptitude, which means you will want to, without a doubt, rely on the Norsemen. Very, very interesting. Other than that, more eligible courtiers can gain the Varangian and loyal traits, and more Varangians will appear. It makes so much sense that you want to found this private imperial army, because that will mean that you can protect yourself from your fellow Greeks with non-Greeks. Makes perfect sense to me. I am kind of curious about this one right here. The Varangians will claim some gold after the Vasilev's death. See, I'm curious here. I really wish that this was also kind of, expanded upon on the other side of this. So, basically going on in the Norseman side, when we send our heirs or our heir for spare to this particular guard, I wish that this was maybe even more interesting there, that I could actually build a bit of a legacy in the Imperial or in the Varangian bodyguard and maybe gain the favor of the Imperial court there, but I assume that it's not, because this is of course primarily Byzantine facing. Now let's talk about Byzantine men-at-arms in general. There are three new ones. We have the Aketai, we have the Skutatoi, and the Balistrai. They look good to me, nothing wrong with that. Additional men-at-arms as well coming for the Armenians and the Normans. We have the Airuji and the Conroi. Look at them go. Those are some really, really nice stats. I mean, okay, to be fair, that's the Normans for you. Since the Normans will be more out and about, we already talked about this, right? They should hopefully also be a bit of a threatening force, even in just a non-landed variant. Honestly, oh my god, I'm thinking about this now. When I was playing in Galicia, right? Or in Galicia, when I was playing there, just yesterday, and I'm going to play, of course, today there as well again, I invited the Normans, and they gave me some great men-at-arms. Oh, that is like the one thing that I'm super looking forward to. You can't really do much more, but that is the one thing I'm looking forward to. Norman bands coming into my land and giving me access to this right here. This amazing piece of men-at-arms. Very, very nice. Looking forward to that for sure. Now, Bureaucracy Dynasty Legacy is the next thing I want to talk about. Let's take a look at this first here. It is nice art, right? We see the Imperial Court, we see the politics. That is, of course, everything it is about. You see the long path here in not the Eternal City, but the wannabe Eternal City of Constantinople, and then all the way to the throne and to the beautiful emperor right there. Let's take a look at what it does. Because like I said, legacies more often than not are playing it a bit safe. They're a bit boring. Stewards of the Empire, monthly influence plus 10%, governor efficiency plus 5%. I'll be honest with you, everything in this empire appears to be about influence. I don't see a world where you do not pick this up. This seems 100% mandatory. Then, power is a ladder. Initial political scheme success chance plus 10%. Promoting house members is 10% cheaper. Also, to me, seems like a must-do. Imagine you have 10 children, they're all governors just hanging around and they are scheming. This is so big, it really catapults you forward. It's not that interesting because it just makes you better, but hey, it does seem like an absolute must-have. Then, house and home. Domicile building construction time minus 10%. Powerful family rating plus 15. Unlocks the reception hall estate building. Must-have. What do you want me to say, right? Eternal City. Development growth plus 0.10 per month. Popular opinion plus 15, and unlocks the Cabinet of Curiosities estate building. We're going to see these in just a bit. Then we have the Diare Kai Basileo. Vassals and noble families are less likely to join claimant factions or use the depose scheme. Unlocks order mass arrests decision. We don't really know what this does. They don't explain it here in the dev diary either, but I'm going to be honest with you. I wish there were more active things in this, but the buildings are actually pretty good. They already count for this, kind of. But I will tell you, This is an unbelievably strong Dynasty Legacy track. I cannot see a world where you are not going to pick these things up if you play in an imperial, in a bureaucratic, administrative government. These are insane. They just make you so good. You will always, I think, want to pick them. Now let's take a look at the actual buildings here, because they are really interesting and also really strong. The reception hall provides legitimacy to house members who accede to the imperial throne. Remember, governors don't have legitimacy, only the emperor does, because he is the only one that is actually ruling and can't just be, recalled. If you're just a governor, you can be recalled at any given moment. For every feast or grand wedding that house members host in the barony where the house's estate is located, the counter on this internal building increases. Once a house member wins the acclamation succession and becomes the emperor, the counter resets. So that means the more I hold festivities that show the glory, that show the value of my dynasty, the better will it be when one of mine actually emerges of the emperor. Whether that is me or not, this is something that is valid for every single house member. And you can see it right here. Members of House Dukas will receive an additional 10 legitimacy upon becoming Vasilevs of the Byzantine Empire. And then 100% of legitimacy counter lost on succession. You lose less, basically, when succession happens if you upgrade this right there. You also gain monthly influence. This is just incredibly powerful. Upgrading this internal building decreases the legitimacy counter lost whenever a house member becomes emperor and increases monthly influence gained for the estate owner. This is insanely good. I'm actually super happy about this. I don't think I have anything negative to say about this, because hear me out here. Most Dynasty Legacy perks, like the very first two that we have here, are just that. You sit down, you get some bonuses, that's it. This right here gives you a connection to a different mechanic, which is hosting feasts, makes it more important to host feasts in a particular location, makes it more important to consider where your estate actually is. This will make it more important to position yourself, which type of duchies you will want to have in your family and under your control, and ultimately cements, of course, your position in the empire itself. This is really cool. It is so interactive. It is so ingenious to tie this to a counter that goes up and resets. I like this. I really wish they expanded more and more, even in existing legacies like this, because this is a good approach in my opinion. And it gets even better and then also a bit more dreamy, I guess, when it comes to the Cabinet of Curiosities. This one provides opportunities based on how many artifacts the estate owner puts on display. Once an artifact has been added to the estate, it is irretrievable and only contributes to the quality of the Cabinet of Curiosities building. You know exactly what I'm about to say. Let's take a look at this first though. Hall of Wonders. Building upgrades dependent on contributed artifacts. Increased quality of sponsored inspirations. Commission artifact decision cost minus 50%. Antiquarian aptitude plus 20. Househead can ask for artifacts through the request as househead interaction. Stewardship, learning, renown, influence, court grandeur. Unbelievable. This is insane. You upgrade this. You build this up by adding artifact to your estates. Do you know what I'm about to say? Do you know what I'm about to say? Take a look at this. Artifact quality score 10. Common artifact, masterwork, famed, illustrious. If you take this and somehow create a domicile that represents a holy site, and we can store things there, and we can plunder it, you get Imperator Rome's holy site system in CK3. I want this principle expanded. We can build holy sites, we can plunder them. That is what would be happening here. I like this. For a Dynasty Legacy track, which is not just extremely overpowered, or at least powerful, as we've seen there, this right here is some of the most innovative approach that we have ever seen. Normally for Dynasty Legacy perks, you maybe get an interaction, maybe you get, a decision. That's about it. This right here lets you actually create something meaningful with a resource that you will have so much of. I need this applied to many, many other fields. Huge fan. The image above shows the second level. Essentially, the higher quality the artifact is, the greater it boosts the quality of the Cabinet of Curiosities. Makes perfect sense. Upgrading this internal estate building makes it cheaper and easier to attain higher quality artifacts and allows you to request artifacts from other house members. The more you upgrade this building, the more bonuses you receive to your stewardship and learning skills, as well as your renown and influence gains. Finally, a Bureaucracy Dynasty Legacy unlocks the Order Mass Arrest decision, which I will let you discover for yourself upon release. I assume maybe it has to do with house feuds? Maybe it has to do with people and factions? It seems it would be very powerful. I mean, it's at the end of this legacy track, right? I am so eager to play with this, but I will also say, compared to every other legacy track, especially, for example, Republican, you know, the stuff even in Iran, I mean, it's never bad, but this right here is an insane, insane Dynasty legacy track. It seems very powerful, and it seems very fun. Awesome. Political schemes. As we mentioned in the dev diaries about administrative government, we have created a new category of schemes called political schemes, which are available to characters with administrative government. Byzantium, and by extension administrative realms, should be much more about intrigue and scheming than war. In these realms, palace politics and backhanded trickery reign supreme. They set the line. For example, at some point you will want to run a smear campaign against one of your political rivals. You can do that now with a slander scheme. We talked about schemes in the context of quests, so it's not quests, what's it called? Contracts, last week. I like this. Don't get me wrong here. They want you to do something that you would never do in any other realm. These political schemes are unique to administrative realms. I just hope it is fun. If there are, let's say, 5, maybe 10, maybe 15, I don't know how many schemes there will be, but let's say there are like 10 schemes. I need those schemes to be so interwoven with some other mechanics, where maybe it allows me to do a war afterwards, or maybe it allows me to do an activity if I succeed in this or that, right? I need them to be interesting. If every scheme is just this, you do a slander scheme, then they may get slandered after 10 years, or that lasts for 10 years, and that is it, I would not be that excited, right? Fundamentally, though, obviously they're doing a different approach here. I gotta respect it. I just hope it will be fun. We're gonna see actually a more hands-on scheme here in just a second. If successful, this scheme lowers the target's candidate score for acclamation to be the Vasilevs and appointment to be a Strategos successions in the realm. It lowers their governor efficiency by 5% for 10 years. It just seems so boring. But to be fair, it's also like it's not that important a scheme, right? I get it. This combo makes them a much less desirable candidate for any position. Another scheme you will definitely want to try out is a raid estate, in which you attempt to successfully stage a raid against another noble family's estate. Take a look at that right here. Start a raid estate scheme against Strategos Theodoros. You may gain gold. If discovered, you will become Theodoros' rival. Member of House Kaukadenos may be killed, maimed, or imprisoned, depending on your choices. That's pretty wild. I wonder whether they're going to do that against you. Oh, I'm so eager to test this. Seriously. A building on the Kaukadenos estate may be destroyed. House Kaukadenos gains estate raided. I wish we could, like, really burn it down, right? Like, I want somebody, after 300 years in the game, to burn down my estate because I kind of got, you know, aloof. My guard was down. I was too cocky. I needed to be put down a notch and then burn down half my estate, and I am back to, like, a state in 100 years ago. That would be pretty fun, I think, just to keep the power creep from just constantly going up. I wonder just how much this raiding is happening. It is clearly an illegal action, right? Of course, it's imperative that this kind of activity remains under the radar, or there will be consequences. The potential rewards, on the other hand, are quite large. Gold for yourself and fewer political rivals from the other noble families. Disrupting your political rivals' base of operations can prove quite fruitful. With plenty of these new political schemes, in addition to a veritable buffet of new character interaction, you will have all the tools you need to plot and scheme your way to power in Byzantium. The jury's still out. I need this to be fun. I understand why they're doing what they're doing. I wish we had a more dedicated interface kind of on the map of where our spy, our intrigue network is, where we have agents. I really would have liked it to be about network building, about agent building. I don't think it is about this. I think it is about, like, pinpointing kind of attacks on other families, other characters, other titles, and so on. It is what it is. I just hope that it's fun. We will see where it lands. I think Judgment here cannot be rendered yet. And not even close to being rendered. This fly is annoying me, by the way. But it cannot be rendered because this looks interesting. Is it going to be fun to be in these menus? We'll find out when this game comes out. Now, the next one, to be honest with you, isn't bad by any stretch, but it's not that exciting for me personally. This one is a chariot racing activity. I can already tell you, this feels like basically a mini grand tournament, which isn't all that exciting because great tournaments are great. I love them. But this feels like the horse racing in particular of that. You can bet in grand tournaments, right? And horse racing in particular, you will get a particular rider. This just seems like more of that. I've seen better, I've seen worse. It's interesting, it's good. Most importantly, of course, it is historical. But for me personally, this is nothing to write home about. Let's take a look at it. Intents. We have also added a few custom intents for this activity that better fit its historical and political context. The default intent will always be to increase influence, but you may want to choose appease the populace if your popular opinion is low. Of course, there are a variety of traditional intents to choose from. So this right right here is an imperial thing to do. Of course, you will need to be wary. Activity guests have an additional intent option to sow discord, which aims to reduce the popular opinion of the current emperor and sabotage their county control. Place your bets. Right, you can see it right here. We can place bets on the different teams. We have indeed the Venetoi, the Prasinoi, and the Likoi, as well as the Russoi. I need to learn all these words before we jump into this. I promise you, I will learn some basic Greek there, okay? But right now, I have no idea how to pronounce it. The important part is you can bet on the historical teams, and then indeed also make a couple of different bets right there. I like the interface. They have a very bespoke interface right there. I honestly would have liked it if we had gotten a grand tournament interface. This is like one of the big things. We are instead getting a normal, kind of activity interface right there. I like the tournament interface. I would have liked to see one, maybe directly like the tournament, or maybe one that is more reminiscent of the estate interface, so a bit more inspired by manuscript art. But either way, take a look at that. We can indeed gamble. We can see how good, how bad they are. You will be approached by the Emperor's Bookmaker, a new court position added in this DLC, and they will ask if you would like to place a wager. You can bet, in a series of choices. Which team would you like to place your wager on? Would you like to place your wager on a specific member of the team, or hedge your bets and bet on a team as a whole, and then win, place, so first or second, and show that it's just first, second, or third place, depending on how safe you want to play it. You may well want to place a wager on your own charioteer if you've brought them along. Let's talk about this. We have a charioteer court position. Every landed and landless title holder with a Roman ceremonies cultural tradition has access to the new champion charioteer court position. If hired, these characters will travel with you to the chariot races and compete on your behalf. Ah, man, this is gonna play so nice in Elder Kings. It's gonna play so nice in Game of Thrones, obviously. Which one am I thinking of? But also in The Fallen Eagle. There you go. Yeah, we're gonna see so much of The Fallen Eagle. Oh my god, the culture divergence stuff that... I think there's going to be a lot coming for those mods here. Let's take a look at this guy. So this guy, aptitude excellent, monthly influence plus 20%, placing third or higher during a chariot race grants influence. And then we have this right here. We're going to see this in just a second. Basically, at a certain point, if you have a certain building, you can make them train. So that means that, they get better at riding even if there is no actual event occurring. Take a look at this tiered trait right there. It's pretty basic, right? It's essentially like you having a champion. Every charioteer is assigned a charioteer trait indicating which team they are on and how much experience they have competing. This guy is on the Venetoi? Either way, on the Venetians. That is where he is. If you want to train up your charioteer in between races, right, like I said, you can build this building. Still love the art, absolutely adore it. And then you can build this up right here. Fundamentally, by the way, I find it fascinating. Army movement speed plus 3%. That's kind of unhinged. Imperial armies are just going to be faster. They're just going to be faster than anybody else's army. They're going to be faster than the nomads, at least for the time being. Okay, chariot training. My champion charioteer will stop performing the chariot training task. Oh, you gain renown. Wow, champion charioteer will gain experience in their charioteer trait over time. I never thought about this, but categorically, the old sources of renown, which are primarily your family holding independent titles, won't be big for you, because your noble family will stay inside of the realm. Which means if your family is on top of that realm, all the dukes underneath don't really count anything. It's just internal. Interesting. That's a pretty interesting dynamic there. You might want to focus on renown here. Who knows? Let's talk about politicking at the event itself. You only get to sit in the Kathisma, the Imperial box, if the Emperor invites you as his guest of honor. That is what is happening right here. While the masses throng the stands and the nobility snake across their privileged sections, here in the Kathisma we can mercifully enjoy some calm. Servants bearing every refreshment wait on our whims, as the charioteers ply their treacherous trait below. Among these joining me in my box today is my brother, Strategos Ioannis, clearly basking in his privileged access to me, and what that communicates. I love the outfit. I hate this guy's face. Anyway, these are the best sort of people. Come, Ioannis, sit beside me, or chatting instead of enjoying this view would be a travesty. Next up is the race. Like I said, I don't really think there's too much exciting stuff here, because it's very reminiscent of what is already there in the other activities. Then begins the actual race. This always begins with the Emperor's Address, which provides special options based on activity intent and current situation. The giver of the games. I love this. This is so good. It is time, leading my household and graciously urging along my invited companion Bardas, with a sweep of my arm, I ascend to the marble Kathisma, our honorary place. And then I shall present the heir standing at my side, promise to address the people's troubles, publicly denigrate an aspirant for the throne, boast of my righteous war, or speak of my beneficence and the loyalty I expect in return. Classic stuff, right? You want something out of this, much like you might, for example, do an event to get legitimacy out of it in general play. You have various things here that you want, strengthening your heir, and so on and so forth. You can track the charioteers and their place via the new UI element on the side of the activity window. Yeah, fair enough. Honestly, this activity, it's okay. I was really hoping it would dive deeper, because this is one of those things the world will stand still if you host this event, right? It could be a full screen thing, just one of those art splash screens if you ask me. There should maybe even be events surrounding it, where you go into the local quarter. Oh my god. Now that I think about it, I would have loved it so much if it was like a... I've just ruined my own life, okay? I would have loved it so much if we had gotten like a city screen. It's like a city, the city of Constantinople lies before us, and we can go into different quarters. We can go to the Imperial Palace, and then when it happens, we get this particular screen right there. It is what it is. This seems like a good, solid event. I'm okay with it. Let's talk about something cool, and one of the only times, okay? Listen, I love Wokek, a great guy. He's made some amazing content. I've never liked Regencies. I've always dogged on the Regencies. This is the first time that I personally look at this and say, I think this is exactly where they're blooming. This is the best implementation of Regencies by far that I've ever seen, and I hope it only goes up from there. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about Co-Empress. This right here is Co-Vasilev's Mikhail of Philippopolis. He's 16 years old, he's a son and the Co-Emperor. We've also named him, well, you know, a vassal in his own right, so that he can get up his atrocious governorship stats. He's already generating influence. As it is, he is betrothed. Very interesting. Co-Empress. The Emperor does not share power. Here, Wokek just goes over that they did. They did that a lot, in fact. This addresses who the next Emperor will be. Emperor A is dead, but Emperor B is still Emperor, mollifies powerful pretenders, or even just gives your child some practical experience of rule. This is the intention when you would use this mechanic. It's also an absolute recipe for petty personal conflicts, drama, civil wars, and comes with a delightful incentive to murder the other emperor in pursuit of undisputed power. Ooh, okay. If you've ever wondered why the Byzantines have such a reputation for civil wars and intrigue, well, personally, I'd peg this practice as a major contributor. I do also want to say, obviously, it also stabilizes the realm. He says it himself, but yeah, it goes both ways, right? This is a thing that can help you destroy you if you're ever too weak. Co-rule in CK3. So, the challenge here was to model something that caused Byzantium a lot of problems, but also make it fun. We settled on a type of diarchy focused around settling the question of your succession, grooming your heir, and farming influence. In exchange, you get a diarch that can be helpful, but who may, over time, grow too big for their boots and decide to take drastic action. We are introducing 3 new diarchies to represent this: duumvirates, nominal duumvirates, and co-monarchies. Of these, duumvirates are a fully sized diarchy, whilst the other 2 are much smaller, goals-focused diarchies for niche situations. These diarchies are grouped together as co-rulership. Co-rulers do not have diarchy inheritance. When a co-ruling diarch dies, the diarchy ends, and cannot be ended forcibly except by the death of one of the involved parties, or maiming for some, which we'll get onto. Making someone your co-ruler always makes them your designated heir, provided they are of your dynasty. Loyalty. Co-rulers take their loyalty first and foremost from how likely they are to inherit soon. What you're about to see is so good. Loyalty. Opinion of you. Time favors the young. Lazy, craven, arbitrary. Culture has palace politics. So these right here indeed turn it down. A co-emperor much younger than you receives a substantial loyalty boost. They are happier the greater the age gap. Conversely, if you have a co-ruler for decades, they will start to get more and more annoyed with you and not dying. We track both the year counts for this and how healthy you are versus your age. Age not catching up with you, -5. Old man too healthy. Old man too healthy. Your time is up. Just die already. This is the only diarchy where, depending on the long-term prospects of your corporation, you are looking at an impact that starts building up. Your dynamic, your state at the start of the diarchy will not be the same 30, 40, 50 years in. This is so good. It sounds so simple, but I wish that regencies fundamentally were constructed like this as well. As a regent, currently, you are either loyal or you're not. This is such an awesome approach. Let's talk about nominal duumvirates. Sometimes you're just looking to help secure the succession. Though appointing one of your infant children co-emperor isn't a silver sling bullet ensuring they'll win this purple, it does help quite a lot. Such a child can't really wield Sometimes you're just looking to help secure the succession. Though appointing one of your infant children co-emperor isn't a silver bullet ensuring they'll win the purple, it does help quite a lot. Such a child can't really wield any true power, but they can start growing accustomed to the ceremonies of rule. Nominal co-emperors have access to no borrowed powers. Instead, as the scales of power swing towards them, they become more cost-efficient to promote for administrative offices and earn progress towards base skill points granted when they come of age. Let's really think about this. You set your child at a very young age up. You want to bring that number up because then they will become better as they go. They will become much more interesting and, maybe more importantly, much more competent, right? Take a look at this. Elevate child as nominal co-emperor. Nominal co-emperor, yep, you enter a nominal duumvirate with Anna as your nominal co-emperor. She will have no access to borrowed powers till she becomes an adult. Anna Dukas becomes designated heir, gains 50 opinion of you for 10 years because you made her the co-ruler. Basically, the more power they have when they hit 16, the more skill bonuses they get from their apprenticeship as emperor. Makes sense. It's almost like an extended I am educating you. The older a nominal co-emperor gets, the more the natural resting point of the scales of power will swing towards them. To hurry the process, you may voluntarily cede authority to them. When your little partner reaches adulthood, the diarchy type is immediately converted over to a true duumvirate, and that is right here what makes this mechanic so good. Let's take a look at the scales of power right here. On becoming an adult, Diarch gains an additional +1 total skill aligned to their education and +1 total +3 in 2 other skills. Co-emperors are +100% more efficient to promote for administrative offices. Current swing value 5, next month's scales of power swings yada yada yada. What this means is that you are locked in though, however. If that guy becomes bad or evil or hates you for whatever reason, they will become a true duumvirate come the age 16. And then you might be in it. You might be in a bad situation because you built a murder machine that wants to get rid of you, is great at scheming and very, very well respected. You are building your own enemy or your own best friend if you manage to make them like you, if you manage to make them good and actually want them to be your heir. As long as you have them, both nominal co-emperors and full co-emperors boost your influence gain per month and give some directly to themselves. If you elevate and support one from a young age, they will be not only a fountain of influence for you, but hopefully have a ready supply of influence themselves when they inherit. All you have to do is keep them sweet until then. Duumvirates. Co-emperors can be picked up in a few ways. They might be nominal co-emperors that reached adulthood, you might nominate an adult family member, or you might diffuse a faction by elevating its leader, forcibly putting truces on everyone in the faction. This is so massive. It's so huge. This is huge appeasement. They carry over the passive influence gain. My god, I wish I could do so much more with factions, you know, where I can like grant them titles, promise them particular things if they stop rebelling and we then get truces. This is good stuff. They carry over the passive influence gain and administrative office promotion efficiency we talked about in the last section. Additionally, as a full co-emperor is always an adult, provided all relevant circumstances permit, their children are also considered to be born in the purple, just as those of the full emperor, because they are co-emperor. Co-emperors have access to the standard suite of borrowed powers that we give most Diarchs, though things like Diarch Revoke Title and Diarch Retract Vassal cannot be used against the Empire's administrative vassals. Like all Diarchs, they are also somewhat better at scheming. Finally, they interact with their liege's realm laws slightly differently. Co-emperors can ask to increase or decrease the imperial bureaucracy. This reduces any strife that the co-emperor has accrued substantially and makes co-emperors the only character other than the realm's liege who can directly affect its primary law. Really cool stuff. Now, of course, let's say you don't like each other. Scapegoat counterpart. When two people hold ultimate power in an institution, petty personal spats can not only get out of hand quickly, they're actively incentivized. You can always blame the other guy. One of the first borrowed powers a co-emperor unlocks is the ability to scapegoat counterpart. Fortunately, unfortunately, their senior emperor can also use it back on them. Scapegoating your fellow emperor requires you to have either higher diplomacy or higher intrigue than them, which means if you elevate somebody very incompetent, it'll be okay. It's fine. You receive influence and gain a little tyranny strive to cause your target to gain even more tyranny strive and lose opinion with them. Remember, tyranny is what you will be measured in as the ruler, and strive is what the co-ruler will be measured in, even if they are not the ruler. Strive is a mechanic that regents already do and very often use very poorly in the current implementation of regencies, because they will just use their powers and strive makes it so that everybody all of a sudden is at -40 and then they kill them. In this case, you can dish out strife / dish out tyranny towards each other, and it always impacts all of the vassals in the realm. Very, very cool. You can see here, of course, leverage your superior diplomacy skills subtly or overtly, so we're looking at different levels of really intensity here. Very interesting. Influence, tyranny, and strife gain, as well as opinion loss, all scale with your relative skill, and whether you are being subtle or obvious. Let's, by the way, also talk about demand despotate. A powerful co-emperor demands their own slice of the realm to rule. First, they must actually have a governorate of their own, but what self-respecting co-emperor could be happy with a mere duchy tier title? With this interaction, they may demand that they be given a kingdom title within the emperor as their own private fief. This immediately creates said kingdom if it didn't exist and grants it and all of its de jure vassals to the co-emperor. Refusing this interaction costs the senior emperor double the influence and the co-emperor paid to send it. There are other ways to acquire a despotate, but they generally involve more underhanded means and don't necessarily come with an immediate grant of potentially many vassals. I've talked about this before. We've all talked about this before. That historically speaking, you can't just go, I'm a duke now. More often than not, if you do it in the kingdom or empire of the person that is your liege, you have to ask them, you have to beg them. This is the first instance where you can now do this and basically show up and say, I think you should grant me this title, and then they can say yes or they can say no, even if that title doesn't exist. This is title creation on a massive scale. You never need to be the emperor to consolidate the empire, at least to a certain degree. I hope you understand why I'm so excited for this already, before we come to the coolest element of this, okay? I am super excited for this, because this gameplay may be the first piece of gameplay where I think it might actually really work well, where you never have to be the top tier liege and still have massive amounts of fun, because to a degree, you can basically become them. The way regencies work, in my opinion, it's either never enough or it's too easy, because the child is 0 years old and then you just take over. This right here is genuine strife. You can do things that you could normally never access unless you were in the position of the highest leader. Here, you don't have to be. You just have to be yourself and become co-emperor somehow. I love this. And now let's talk about the coolest element, Imperial Expedition. With 2 emperors, you can afford to risk one doing something a little grandiose. This borrowed power gives the co-emperor a single usage of a very powerful CB, an Imperial Expedition, to be launched against realms that either border the empire or have territory de jure belonging to it. They can target all duchies that match either of these criteria and belong to the target. Every governor bordering the defender is forcibly called to war as an ally. Non-bordering governors with martial province administrations are given the choice to join. It's a mega war, my friends. It is an actual, mechanically implemented mega war. Upon victory, the co-emperor is given 4 choices. Turn the conquered lands over to their senior emperor for disbursement, reaping opinion and influence proportional to the amount of land captured. Basically, if you think about it, this is like you're essentially looking at a situation where they will then all turn them into duchies, right? They will all turn them into governorships. Keep the territories for themselves, losing proportional opinion with their senior empire, handing over most of the territories whilst keeping the best duchy for themselves, giving slightly reduced influence and opinion, appointing local interim governors. This gives no influence or opinion with the senior emperor, but does give plenty of opinion with the newly elevated governors, as well as hooks on them. Perfect for producing a batch of loyal future supporters. This is the coolest thing. I want to do something in the service of the realm as the region as well, in normal feudal gameplay. This right here is so awesome. It's so good. It involves border people. It involves yourself without being the overliege to do something only the overliege normally would do. You can do it entirely without demanding anything for yourself. You don't need to take any duchy. You can just hand it over. You get opinion and influence. It's amazing. I'm sorry, I love this. I think this is one of the coolest things, especially considering that the military system here will now work differently. Because everything will be tied to title, to institutional troops. If you have the influence, if you have the money, you can go around, recruit that army, do this imperial expedition, be hailed as a hero, come back, be the better of the 2 co-emperors. I love this. I'm sorry, this is outstanding. This is the first time where regencies, A, for me, feel super awesome, so well, diarchies feel super awesome, and B, where I'm like, I don't ever have to become the emperor. I can be co-emperor. That's good enough. I don't need to sit in Constantinople. It's okay. Huge fan. Let's talk about the next one, Guard's perfect vassal. Guard's vice region on Earth understands that killing is a sin. It does a ruler good to show a little mercy when dispensing justice. And what is more merciful just than sparing a usurper's life whilst denying them the chance to look upon Guard Right's hand ever again? Co-empress, senior empress, and even appropriately cultured co-monarchs have access to the new main co-ruler interaction. This allows you to choose whether you wish to cut away their testicles, eye, nose, a leg, or an arm. If a co-ruler maims their senior ruler, they then immediately usurp their top-tier titles, plus the entire capital duchy. If the senior ruler maims their co-ruler, then their diarchy ends, and their former co-ruler is demoted back to whatever rank is granted by any titles they hold. We can humiliate them. We don't have to kill them. And then they will be ineligible. Look at that. Maim co-emperor. I love it. I love it. This is so good. So if you take control of the other guy, you don't have to kill them. You don't have to kick him out outright. You can simply say you are no longer here to serve. A statement for almost all the world to see. Take a look at that. That would be for Take the Ice. That is nasty. Now, for the last part. So we have nominal duumvirates, we have duumvirates, and now let's talk about co-monarchies in general. Lastly, we have added in a reduced form of co-emperorship for feudal rulers in the form of co-monarchies. These have no new borrowed powers, are unique to feudal kingdoms and empires, and are primarily intended as an early game mechanism. Because you need to introduce your heir, which is... How did they do that? I hated every diarchy. And then they're doing all this, and it's so accurate. It's so historically... What a blessing. Seriously, I'm sorry. I'm fawning over this. This is the first time diarchies are making me fawn. Since a co-ruler is your designated heir, raising one of your children as king or emperor in your lifetime allows you access to the designated heir mechanics much earlier than usual. With the advent of Choose a New Dynasty and loosened restrictions on who you might play after death, this is much less of a balance concern than previous patches. Your new co-ruler can only be deposed by execution, or maiming if you have the appropriate cultural tradition. It has the same dubious loyalty mechanic as a co-emperor, etc., so consider this a roleplay-friendly alternative for putting your preferred heir on the throne to disinheriting your 3 eldest children to get to the 4th you actually wanted. Instead of influence gain, co-monarchs give vassal opinions, scaling with the diplomacy to the liege, and gain considerable monthly prestige that scales slightly up for empires. Until now, there was no way to really introduce your heir to the empire, to the kingdom, whatever. This was front and center. Having this role was incredibly important for early feudal monarchies, because this was the only way to achieve ties of loyalty, which all of this system was based on, right? That's feudalism, if there was such a thing. To achieve that while you still live. The moment you die, if you hadn't established your child already, everything, all hell would break loose. Introducing the heir that you want, doing it right, making sure that the heir doesn't turn against you, super, super important. The fact that this now comes in with the Byzantine content almost makes me happy for the Byzantine content, okay? That's all I'm gonna say. I am a huge, huge fan. And take a look at this. Henry the Young King is a historical co-monarch in 1178. He doesn't look that hard, huh? What's his problem? Why is this hard red? Anyway, this is so good. WCAG really nailed it. I am not joking when I say I have been the biggest hater. I hate the way that they talk, that they walk, that they do anything in diarchies up to now. I think this slaps. Viziers and normal regions, still not the biggest fan. I think it feels clunky. I don't think it goes far enough. This right here is awesome. Maybe my favorite feature. Is this free? Oh god. Please tell me this is free. I'm gonna wait for an answer. I pinged them on Discord. We'll see how it goes. Oftentimes they don't respond. They're very arrogant, terrible people. Okay, no. Seriously. Let's hope that this is free because this... I mean, it has to be, right? Diarchies so far are free, I think. Yeah, Viziers are free. No, I hope it's free because this is so good. It will elevate the game fundamentally. Because all of a sudden, we have a direct role for our heir in our realm before they become the new title. They can use that against us. They can use that for us. They can stabilize. They can destabilize the realm. That's the dream. And by the way... Nice cap. Look at all these caps. We're getting a lot of caps. Look at her upper lip. My god, good job. New decisions. Hold Triumph. The Byzantine Emperor can now use the Hold a Triumph decision after a major accomplishment, like winning a war. This is a chance to capitalize on your success. Makes perfect sense. Love the art still. Triumph. Oh, there you are. Triumph, an impressive procession. If you take a look at this, you come in through the Golden Gate. You stop at the Million, where all measurements in the Empire start. And of course, that is beautiful. Then you go to the Hippodrome or to the Hagia Sophia. And there then, you will hold a speech. And this speech is something that is reactive to whatever you have done. In this case, we have somehow managed to defeat Sultan al-Muazzam al-Arslan. And that leaves us with, a lot of speeches we could hold. Although, wars are overrated, so perhaps I should divert their attention somewhere else. This is a huge victory, but okay, it's overrated. With the guidance of St. George, many victories shall come. May Jesus always lead the empire to safety, and under the protection of God, the emperor shall prosper. I assume this is like development, this is like this prestige, faith, so like piety, and then this right there is development growth, maybe? Something like that, I'm sure. Next are the prepare Greek-fired Romans. We're not adding naval warfare to CK3 with roads to power, so get that idea out of your minds right now. But we have added some representation for Greek fire, the famed Byzantine weapon primarily utilized in naval warfare. Prepare Greek-fired Romans. This is such an interesting topic because the layperson that is interested in history very often will be like, oh yeah, they dominated the seas. But the logistics and the infrastructure of the Greek fire ships doesn't actually allow for that. Not really anyway. Because what you need to actually keep them running is a lot of fuel. It is a lot of material that you can spew at others, right? To actually utilize it. And that makes it very dangerous and very precarious to bring that any further than your own port, right? If you think about it, I hope that makes sense. I was very happy, surprised actually, that what they have right here makes perfect sense. That's exactly how they treat it. We have primarily, and I've read some reports, and we can't really pinpoint it, I read some reports that at least sounded like Greek fire utilized in Libya. These were reports from the Cairo Geniza. The Cairo Geniza is a super cool document. I don't want to get too lost in the sauce here, but super cool document where they basically, one of the most extensive documents on the topic of trade by the Cairo Jewish community in the Middle Ages that is still actually present. So they worked through it, we were able to analyze this, we were able to see just where exactly trade went, how it changed over the centuries, and of course what actually was traded, which is massive. What is traded is so difficult to actually trace. And one of the merchants there reported that, in Libya, he was attacked by pirates that seemed to be using something very similar there. We can't really trace that, but what I'm saying is, this Greek fire was very dangerous in very particular circumstances, rather than, oh, it's basically like our ships have cannonballs. No, that's not the case. You cannot actually bring these ships logistically, at least not in any meaningful way, for example, to your invasion in Sicily. Let's take a look at how they did it here, because they do it exactly like this. Setting the Bosporus alight has saved Constantinople from ruin before and could do so again. The sheltered body of water is one of the few places that liquid fire, our secretive substance, can be reliably deployed. They get it. This is exactly, maybe they read the same papers that I read. Let massive fire siphons be manufactured and a garrison fleet armed. You would use this primarily in a defensive fashion, and that's exactly what they do here. While defensive fire Romans last, this is for 30 years, if you complete the scheme, I like that this decision is attached to a scheme. Enemy-embarked armies near Byzantium may be damaged. Constructing the small harbor and bastions and curtain walls building lines in Constantinople will improve this effect. I love this. This is historically accurate, it's super cool, it's unique to Constantinople, and that's all you need. Taking this decision as the Byzantine emperor unlocks a new scheme that upon completion gives you the ability to harm or even destroy embarked armies near Byzantium. So when your enemy comes knocking, you will be ready. Nafta, Quicklime, and Temerity. As Vasilevs, I must be undisputed master of my home waters. This is a right granted by God and safeguarded through siege and assault by our harnessing of flames from heaven, our mastery of liquid fire. If Constantinople is to be protected, our docks must house more than helpless merchant ships. Where are my swift Romans? Where are clever craftsmen like Kalinikos of Heliopolis, who will forge great flame projectors to spit sparks over my vessels' prows? I will put Constantinople to work. Latins will happily construct our ships. Yeah, big topic there. Or build a fleet liable to burn itself up? No, I don't think so. This is great. I love this. This is great flavor, obviously. Come on, a Game of Thrones, right? they're gonna put this decision right in there. Establish silk production. Take a look at that. You can commission this. An artisan from your estate will produce a silk regalia artifact. You can do that as well if you have that building. Pretty cool. Nothing wrong with this. Next up, we have something that I'm not going to cover too much. We got terrain changes. I hope you like it. Then we got something cool, but very short. That is Golos tooltips. You can see it right here. When we have a foreign word that is being used, it will be highlighted. Then you get this very neat little tooltip here with beautiful just art, I guess, attached to it. Aion Aristoien is an ancient Greek phrase from Homer's Iliad, meaning ever to excel. Take a look at that. So they added some nice readability. Let me check whether co-emperors are free, but other than that, maybe my favorite dev diary, and it's primarily driven by a new regency mechanic, at least to a degree, a new diarchy mechanic. Very surprised. I've been the biggest hater of diarchies. I love it. I think that is so good. It gives me the hope that we can be really expected for this to be the first actual setting and the first campaign where you never become the proper emperor and still have fun. Because you can do imperial expeditions, you can become co-emperor, you can do so many cool things. Awesome, awesome stuff. The big question will be, are schemes fun? That's the big question. So I just got the confirmation from the community manager that co-monarchies will be free, accessible for everybody, and then of course everything related to admin government, so that is Duumvirs, and the nominal Duumvirs will be something that you, well, only get if you have the DLC, as the administrative government is DLC locked. Super cool stuff. The schemes are gonna be so important. There's clearly a framework here, there's clearly a design vision that says we want to make it fun to just be a family, to just vibe in the Empire, to work for the Empire, etc, etc, etc. Whether actual normal gameplay in the Empire will be fun, that's the big question. I hope that we're gonna see that in the coming week or so, but yeah, that's a big one actually. In the coming week I'm in Stockholm, so we'll see whether we can actually see this. You know, by next week. Whenever I make the Dev Diary video, I guess. Folks, I will leave you right here, and I'll see you later, alligator.